Hello, everybody. Let's see, getting over to the right screen here. My name is Jax James. I am the NORML State Policy Manager, and here for my weekly update with you guys about legislative activity across the country. We've got a lot of great movement still moving, or a lot of great legislation still moving. I did want to note that there's a significant amount of states that have already reached sine die. Sine die is another way to say last day of the session. And that means unless your bill has made it over certain hurdles, your session is over for the year. So there are some sine die dates approaching over the next 2 weeks that will make it where there's really only a few states left with moving legislation. And so at that point, these updates will happen a little bit less. But as of right now, we still got some really great movement across quite a few states. So I usually encourage you guys to comment where you're from in the comment section. So after I give my update, I can come back to you guys and go over what action alerts might be happening in your state. So a few housekeeping items before I get started. In the description below of this live stream, you'll see a first link, and that is to our blog for today that has all of the updates I'm going to go over and the associated action alerts, any news articles, any blogs we might have on the subject. So I encourage you to click on that. You'll also see normal.org/act. So even if I don't talk about your state today, if you go to normal.org/act, at the top of the page is all of the federal action alerts that I know you guys want to participate in. And then you can hover over your state on the dynamic map and see if there's any moving legislation in your area. And so that will be the key way for you, if I don't highlight one of your states today, for you to find out what is moving in your state. I also did want to mention that I recently put out a update on ballot initiatives that you can take a look at. And before I get started, I did want to highlight some changes in Ohio since I put that out last week. So Ohio has essentially had to postpone their voter initiative until 2023. The litigating parties have agreed on a settlement that will postpone any opportunity for voters to decide until 2023. This is, of course, the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, which would allow for adults to possess, cultivate at home, and purchase limited quantities of cannabis. The way it works in Ohio is once advocates collect a sufficient number of signatures from registered voters, the measure goes before the lawmaker. And if they refuse to take any action on it, then activists have to collect more signatures to get it on the ballot in November. So I did also want to point out that there are some efforts to continue that. One important thing to note is that the signatures will still be valid. They've already collected. So that is an important update I just wanted to give real quick on the ballot initiative effort in Ohio. All right, here we go with the states this week. We've got some really great updates across the country, and I'll go ahead and start off in California. AB 2188 protects the employment rights of cannabis consumers. It has gone through multiple committee hurdles, and it now is heading to the assembly floor. This bill bans employers from denying jobs or firing employees based solely on a positive drug test for inactive metabolites of THC. So if you live in California, there's a link there where you can send a message of support to your legislator about 2188 having to do with the employment rights of cannabis consumers. You might have been watching yesterday at the wild roller coaster that is Delaware right now. Delaware House Bill 372 would provide for commercial production and sale of cannabis by licensed entities. And the update here was that yesterday the bill's sponsor engaged in a procedural effort that will allow the bill to be put back on the agenda at a later date. The House bill had passed committee. It did go to the House floor, and then through some absences due to COVID, the bill did not reach the 25 vote mark that it needed. Of course, because this has to do with taxation, it needs a supermajority. So it is expected that the House floor will address this issue again in June after their break. And there's a link there for the blog that I created yesterday with Delaware NORML so that you can catch up on all of the details about what's going on. So make sure that you click the link to send your Delaware lawmakers to let them know that you support HB 372. It's really important to note that in Delaware, there's complementary legislation. And the reason that there's a two-bill package is that the previous bill from this same session to legalize cannabis and address all of these issues was not passed by the supermajorities that it needed since it dealt with taxation. So this complementary legislation, HB 371, has to deal with the depenalization of possession of 1 ounce of marijuana and allowing for adults to transfer that same amount between themselves without remuneration. It had passed both chambers, and now it awaits action from Democratic Governor John Carney. Now, a spokesman for the governor had said he'll review the bill, but that the governor remains largely opposed to legalization. And he has until May 31st to act on this. So there is an action alert there if you live in Delaware where you can ask Governor Carney to sign this important legislation. There's no reason to continue these punitive practices, and we might as well depenalize it and then also get a regulated structure in place with 372. Now, talking about Louisiana, there's several bills moving in Louisiana. House Bill 137 allows for reciprocity for out-of-state patients. 137 passed the House with a vote of 67 to 23. It has also passed out of Senate committee and is scheduled to be debated on the Senate floor on May the 23rd. House Bill 774 facilitates for those seeking to have their past marijuana conviction expunged. This bill has passed the House floor with a vote of 78 to 19 and now advances to the Senate. I believe that it will be heard on Tuesday as of an update today. Additionally, House Bill, this is in Louisiana, 988 offers employment protections to patients who lawfully consume medical marijuana while away from the job. The provision doesn't alter existing law regarding consumption of cannabis while at work, which is still strictly prohibited. So HB 988 passed unanimously by the members of the House Committee on Labor and Industry, where they did amend it, and it now will advance to the House floor at a date to be determined. There are other bills moving in Louisiana, but these are the ones that more of our priorities there. Real quick, I'm going to come back to the comments and just see if there's anything I missed real quick. All right, we got people from Texas, Maui, Nevada, Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, Kentucky. Awesome. California, North Dakota, Indiana. All right, great. We got a lot of states here. I've covered a couple of them already. I've got a few more to go here in my update, and then I will come over to go through any states that you have there about currently moving legislation. So Massachusetts, Senate Bill 2823 outlines social equity provisions for the state's cannabis industry, as well as expectations for the establishment of new businesses. If passed, the bill would mandate that a portion of retail profits from social equity marijuana businesses be reinvested into the community that the business serves. It also requires that a host of communities encourage local individuals that have been disproportionately harmed by marijuana prohibition and enforcement to participate in the industry. Now, there is a the bill has passed the House and the Senate and now heads to the governor's desk. So it is important to make sure that that governor, so many elected official titles, supports this effort for equity in Massachusetts. In New Jersey, currently under New Jersey state law, it's illegal to operate a motor vehicle while under the influence of cannabis, but there's no limits currently on detectable levels that have been established, as they don't really indicate an individual's level of impairment. You know, THC can be detectable in an individual for periods of time well beyond any time that they would be considered under the influence of THC. NORML opposes Senate Bill 2616, which wants to impose an arbitrary per se limit for those who operate a motor vehicle with trace levels of THC in their blood, regardless of whether they are behaving as if they are impaired. So make sure that you send a message to your lawmakers in support or in opposition of this effort. Then there's a couple new bills in New York. Senate Bill 9218, which provides reciprocity for medical cannabis programs from people from out of state. And it also seeks to promulgate regulations for the approval of pre-rolled products in the New York medical cannabis program. If passed, those that are not New York State residents would be able to access their medical cannabis and purchase it there in New York. There's a link there for you to participate in our action alert. Additionally, there's Senate Bill 9217 that would allow for personal cultivation of cannabis in licensed facilities by individuals who can lawfully cultivate and consume cannabis under state law. So if passed, this bill would ensure that individuals who perhaps lack residences that are suitable for home cultivation of cannabis plants, such as urban community dwellers, would still have the opportunity to exercise their right for personal cultivation in a safe setting. Under current law, personal cultivation is only allowed in a person's private residence. So I encourage everyone to support that bill out of New York. Now let's talk about Rhode Island. So in Rhode Island, the current law penalizes possession of up to 1 ounce by those under the or over the age of 18 as a $150 civil fine. There's legislation, Senate Bill 2430 and House Bill 7593, both known as the Rhode Island Cannabis Act, that would create an established adult use cannabis market. The act would allow for Rhode Islanders 21 and up to possess, home cultivate, and purchase limited amounts of cannabis. It also facilitates automatic review and expungement of past criminal records, and it includes provisions for reinvesting tax revenue from cannabis sales into those communities that were previously harmed by prohibition, as well as programs that aid in social equity applicants that seek to enter the market. So the update here is that the Senate bill has passed the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the House bill has passed the House Finance Committee. Both bills were amended and now advanced to their floor chamber, or the chambers of their floors. The Senate bill is scheduled to be debated on the Senate floor currently on May 24th. So if you live in Rhode Island, please make sure that you participate in that action alert there. All right, so that's my quick update about the Ohio change on the ballot initiative. Some updates here from important moving legislation across the country. So what I'm going to do now is come back to your comments and see if there are some states that I missed that I can update you on. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, not every state is currently in a legislative session. So if you are wanting to participate in action alerts, you can go to norml.org/act and of course participate in all of those federal action alerts that are at the top. And then to see what your state has moving, you can hover over your state and it'll bring up any active bills in your area. All right, so Texas, FYI, not in a legislative cycle right now, but it is the interim and there are interim charges. So if you go to texasnormal.org, you can click on the on the take action link, and you can send an action alert having to do with medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization. And these are some topics that are going to be addressed in future interim charges. However, there is right now is the last day of early voting for primary runoffs, of which the lieutenant governor is in a runoff on the Democratic ticket, as well as several other statewide races. And there are also local runoffs. So I encourage everyone to participate. The actual voting day for Texas primary runoffs is May 24th. We will be updating our Texas NORML marijuana policy voter guide, and we'll have that out in advance of the November elections. So that's the update in Texas. Hawaii, I see someone from Hawaii. You guys just had the end of your session. So legislation there is no longer moving unless it has already made it past the threshold there. Let's see, Nevada. I want to say not currently in session right now. I have a handy dandy spreadsheet that I'm looking at. So just so you guys know. I went over New York, North Carolina. There is a bill having to do with medical cannabis that is currently moving and is likely to pass as long as it continues to garner support. So make sure you take action there. Kentucky, sorry, but y'all's session is over. I talked about California. Let's see what else we got. Pennsylvania, there is some. Let's see. Sorry, coming over here. Why is it sorted that way? I think I hit the wrong button. My bad. Okay, Pennsylvania. I was pretty sure that there were a few things. Yes, in Pennsylvania, there's legislation having to do with home grow, banking, decriminalization, DUI, legalization, and there's one that we oppose that also strips patient protections. So those of you in Pennsylvania, please do participate in those. Minnesota. Let's take a look at Minnesota. Minnesota does still have some legislation moving at this time. It looks like there's only 3 days left in session, but there is legislation having to do with decriminalization and expunction, legalization, probation. So those in Minnesota, please participate in that. Okay. I don't see any other states here, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you are watching, go to norml.org/act, hover over your state, and you will see any and all moving legislation that is occurring there. If you don't have legislation moving in your state, make sure that you participate in our federal action alerts, because that is definitely going on right now. And of course, I also included some links on how to become a member of NORML and support our mission through membership dues. There's also a donation link there where you can make a one-time or reoccurring donation to help support our mission of being a consumer and patient advocacy group. And then there's also information about chapters. There are chapters in a majority of the states. There are a few that don't have chapters. So if you want to be more engaged with your chapter in your state, make sure you go to the chapters page. And if there's not one for your state, there's also information on how you can reach out to start to create your own chapter there. So I definitely encourage everyone to click on all the links that I've provided. I shook my screen. Sorry about that. And on that note, it is a beautiful Friday here in Austin, Texas. I hope that it is a lovely day where you guys are at, and that you have a great weekend ahead of you. I, of course, will be back next Friday for another update on what is going on across the country. Make sure you stay tuned to our blog for updates and alerts. And I'm going to sign off for today. And thank you guys so much for joining in and commenting where you're from. I love to see the diverse crowd that we have following us here at NORML. So take care, everybody.